Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm doing something a little bit different, and I'm actually in my studio, and I was sitting here and I thought, you know what? I really need to do something about all of these all of these paintings over here. I'll just give you a look at this. That's a lot of paintings, and if that's not enough, I have like a whole bunch of 8x10s over here. I have paintings in boxes. Yeah, I gotta get some paintings out of here, and I'm gonna figure out a way to do that. It's interesting. It's a lot of history there, and you've seen most of it. So, all right. Anyway, so what I'm gonna do today is my friend Nigel Beard lives on the east coast of England. Basically, lives and paints in the area where Turner lived and painted. And I'm hoping that one of these days soon I can actually get over there and paint with him. I'm really looking forward to when that opportunity comes up. But Nigel and I did something. He looked at the painting I did in the park with the bridge and everything. I had some problems with it, and we were talking about that a little bit. And he had recently sent me some pictures of some of his paintings, and so what we decided to do is we exchanged photographs, and he had a photograph of that scene where I painted that bridge, and I have a photograph that he sent me of one of the scenes that he recently painted. And so we decided that we're going to each paint the scene, and just to see how different artists approach different scenes, which I've already got his, so it's pretty amazing. I actually like his a lot better than mine. So, and that's for a lot of different reasons, but I've always been super attracted to Nigel's skies, and in part of this video I'm just going to show you some of the skies that he paints. And I always tell him that he's totally channeling Turner when he paints those skies, because there are a lot of similarities, and it just must be the light in that area, the way it presents itself, and the storms and the weather, and but some very dramatic skies, which I'm always quite jealous of, actually. But anyway, I'll get set up here, and I'll show you the photograph that I'm going to paint. I have it on my phone, but I'll kind of flash it up on the screen here, and so you can see the scene. I'll get it sketched in. It's pretty simple landscape, actually. There are a few cows in this one, and hopefully I can do it some justice. So I'll get set up, and yeah, we'll get on with this. All right, so I'm going to start with the sky and kind of work my way forward. And this time I actually sort of sketched out some of the clouds, mainly because I wanted to maintain this one kind of predominant cloud group that sits right here, sort of in the middle. And so I just drew them in really fast. It's a pretty simple landscape. You have this distant tree line here, a second layer of trees, and then these ones that are most forward are sitting here. This is mostly grass around the edge of this this stream here, and this is where I really want to focus on being successful today, because in my last painting, the one that you saw of the bridge, the colors that were in the water just didn't relate to what was happening around them, so it was not that successful in my opinion. So, and I think Nigel did a much better job at that than I did, and so I like that part of his painting very much. But anyway, I'm going to start with the sky, and I've got cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, and then I have a radiant turquoise here. So I have these three blues. I have cad red light, and alizarin crimson, sap green. I have a little bit of burnt sienna right here, And then I've got some cad yellow. So I wanted to say thank you to Jenna because she had some oils that she decided not to continue to pursue as she's experimenting with some water mixables. She paints with gouache frequently, and she was nice enough to send me this whole bag of oil paints, including this large tube of burnt sienna, which actually makes a great base color, so I'll definitely put that to good use. But I wanted to say a thank you to Jenna. So thank you very much for these paints. I'll definitely put these to use. And as a matter of fact, we are putting them to use right here today. So thank you for thinking of me in that way. And yeah, so all right, I think I'm gonna take need some more. I could probably need some more white here. I forgot to load enough. I don't like to keep going back to the well for white, so I make sure I have plenty of that on the panel here, on the palette. So we'll take some cobalt blue and a little bit of the ultramarine blue. We'll see what we come up with here. And this color is not blue enough. I think the ultramarine kind of wiped out the coolness that I was going for there. So I think we'll start with this color here and see where we go from there. And I just want to kind of lay that in here in this section. It's kind of one of the darkest areas here. And just outline these clouds with that. And it should set this cloud off. It should set this cloud off pretty nicely. So up in here. The thing I like about this particular cloud layout, and something that I'm thinking about as I'm doing this from a design perspective, is I want some of these clouds to be continuous and some of them to be contiguous. So continuous means they're overlapping, and then contiguous means that they're just next to each other, and then consecutive means that they're living out there by themselves. So it's just a design element that I'm kind of processing as I'm doing this. And I'm gonna actually, as I get toward this lower section here, the sky is gonna gradate from a darker value to a lighter value on the horizon. So I'm actually gonna pick up some of this radiant turquoise. I'm gonna bring that in, and that's gonna start to bring the value down here. So there we go. And we'll actually take a little more of that and a little white as we work our way down here. And we're going to go even a little bit of step further, and then when it gets back on that horizon, I'm just going to take a little pinprick of this yellow, and I'm going to add that in here, and it's going to give us a really nice color back in here. And sometimes when I'm painting skies, I have this tendency to just work the brush horizontally, so I'm trying to be conscious about the directions of my strokes. I want them to actually be a little bit random. So I'm just coming back in until I feel good about the texture that I've created. And that'll be good for now. Okay. All right, now I'm going to mix kind of a neutral gray color. And we're going to take I want to do this one. Well, let's try the ultramarine blue and some cat orange. Might need a little more ultramarine blue in that. That gives us a dark gray, and then we'll see how neutral that really is here in a second. I have a feeling that it's going to be on the warm side, which it is. And there is some warmth in this sky, but it's actually cooler than warm, so we'll just blue that a little bit, and then I think that gives us a pretty good place to start. And I'll use that gray in these clouds, and this will give me a feel for what the contrast is. I'm just painting the kind of the underside, and that's still too warm in my opinion, so I'm gonna come back in with some more, maybe cobalt blue. See if we can gray that. Yeah, I like that a lot better. There's bluer there. And this one up here is actually quite gray because we're seeing the underside of it a lot. So we can go back into this darker side here. And there are variations in the gray as well. So I'm going to actually come in with a lighter value, and around the edges here, this actually gets a little bit lighter. So just paint that in, and then we'll pick up the underside of this one here, kind of that mid-tone gray. And then the one that's up here, it's a little darker right in the middle. me just pick up the other ones that I have here. So you can see these are these clouds in this area. We're seeing the underside, less of the underside, and then the further away they get, we only have like sort of this kind of slim line, the slim line of the underside of the cloud, and they get grouped together more because they're sort of stacking as they get further back. So we're just going to lay in a little bit of gray, some horizontal grays back here, just where those clouds are. As they get toward the horizon, we're seeing a bunch of them overlapping and stuff like that. So they're just getting further and further away, and we see less sky when you get down there. So okay. Now we're going to clean this brush off a little bit. And then we're going to actually take just a touch of the alizarin crimson, and I'm going to go into this mixture here, and it's going to give us a kind of a violet color. And I don't want it to get too red, so there we go. We'll come into that mixture. Because the majority of like this cloud up here, it's not really very, it's not highlighted white as much as, because we're still seeing a lot of the underside of it. And it's kind of some violets that I was looking for. These look nice, so let that go before I mess it up. And then we'll come back here and just lighten that value a little bit as we get back here. I don't want it to get too contrasty too fast, because this one right here is really the most important one to have the highest contrast for me. So alright, I'll do the same over here, except we're going to go just a touch lighter in value. Still somewhat violet. And since there are shadows even within the whites, just coming back in. one way I'm learning how to deal with painting clouds like this is to just keep the brush moving. It's just one of the things that I've been thinking about lately as I'm painting skies and clouds and observing other skies and clouds that I see other people have painted. It seems to me that's a really critical part, is to just keep things moving so it doesn't get too static and there's some energy maintained in the clouds. So I'll come in with this kind of this more mid, it's not a mid-tone really, it's a little higher than that, but I'll just lay this in real quick. And then I'm gonna just push that a little bit further. And again, I'm just gonna touch this yellow just a little bit. And then the very top and leading edge of this, it's catching a lot of light. Maybe a little white there. A little bit of lighter value on the top of this one here. Okay, feeling good about that, so I'm going to let that be. Now, I'm going to go right to this water. And I'm going to scrub that in really quick. And it has a value that's actually darker than my darkest part of the sky that I have right now. So I think probably the best way for me to achieve that is I'll start with the cobalt, and then I'm going to actually add some ultramarine, and then I'm going to actually grab a little bit of this cad red light. And this should get kind of a violet color that would lean more towards a gray than if I went for the alizarin there. So, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of scrub this in. Since this is the mistake I made before, where this just got way too light on me. This is just a reminder for me not to let this get too light. Now the value does get lighter as it gets as it gets back here, but it's still fairly dark, and you can see the difference here. That may even be too light, but it is sort of a violet gray. And go back to that blue touch of, there we go. Now again, this is just to keep me out of trouble. This may, there are parts of this that will remain toward the end, but I want to do it just to establish the overall feel I'm after before I get to too far down the road. So I'm just going to let that go for a minute. Now we'll work on these tree lines. I find it interesting in this particular picture that when I was looking at it, that the trees in the distance are actually darker than the ones that are closer up, and I guess that has to do with we're sort of seeing them as complete verticals back there. We're not seeing any light through them the way we do the ones that are closer up. And the ones that are closer up are taking on some light, that that doesn't exist back there. So so we'll start with that tree line back there. And now that I look at this, I may actually start with this. No, I'm not going to do the grass yet. Alright, I'm going to do this tree first. So I'm going to just start with getting blue paint all over my hands. That happens sometimes, so I'll just take a little sap green, and I'm going to first blue it, since it's in the distance there. I'm going to get it pretty blue. And then I'm just going to put a touch of its complement in there. And if that gets too warm, then I'll come back. But that's really kind of where this distant trees are living, and I'm going to end up grabbing some of that. Keep trying to balance this. I don't want it to get too warm, so just move back and forth, and that is not the value. It's probably closer there. It wants to pick up a lot of that brush goes into the sky and then pulls a little of the lightness in, but I usually just sort of work with that. Because that gives me some variation rather than just painting a solid color there. I actually get a little bit of variation, and I'll sort of paint through this one a little bit. And as these are coming toward me, let me lighten up the deal here. There, lost my picture for a minute. There we go. There's going to be some of this green that's in there, but it's going to get a little bit warmer, so I'm just going to go into the yellow, and I'm going to warm this up just a little bit as I move forward, and then that would be this tree here. Maybe a touch more warmth in it, and it will be warmer, especially on that leading edge. Get a little more cad yellow in that. And when you get down to the bottom, where kind of brush and all kind of things, and the underside of the tree is not getting as much light as the top side, obviously. And it always gets a little darker down here, so we'll just grab some maybe cobalt blue and drop that down along this lower edge a little. And then I'll go back into that right. It's not dark down in here. Now, as these guys are coming forward, let's create a little variety in there. Paint this through a little bit. And then this next group over here are a little further forward. So they've got kind of some bright greens actually down in this area. Sort of a little bit brighter, especially on this edge. And they are actually quite a bit darker down in here, so they're the same way. Got these darks down in their middle section. And then we just need to be just a little bit darker right next to the ground, where we've got more things growing. We can even just warm that one up a little bit since it's moving closer to us. All right, just move to just the outer edge of this one. It's going to be a little bit of contrast between it and the tree line behind it. And actually, the tops are picking up a little bit of light crust here. This must have been about midday or so. Let's get some blue greens down in here too. All right, so we leave that be for a minute. Now I'm gonna lay in this this green here, and actually let me see how I'm doing here. 35 minutes, 12. Oh, I'm good. All right. So now we'll take maybe a number 4 brush, and we're gonna come in, and at first I just want to lay in some color, and this has a little yellow in it. In the grass, the value is much lighter. It's the second lightest thing in the painting. The sky is first, this flat plane here is second, and of course, and then we go to the trees, obviously, in these where we're only seeing pretty much sheer verticals back here are the darkest. So I'm going to come in and do this part, and I think what I'm going to do, I'm trying to decide on how I want to do this, because I think I'm going to start with sap green. I'll just go into this pool here, and then I'm going to take some of the cad red again and lay that in there, and then see what just see where we're at. So it gives me like a very warm gray color, and there is a lot of warm grays in this, but they're more. Need a little more. I need a little bit of this red. And then we're going to go in with yellow. Just trying to sort of get this earth tone, and then we're going to green it. So now we're going to go back with the blue. There we go. So I got to the sort of the warmth that I was after first, and then I just grade it, and now we'll take a little bit of this and experiment with what we have there. So this works pretty good for this area in here, which is maybe just a bit of this sap green in there will help this. It'll at least help tell the story that what's living back here is still alive, if that makes any sense to you. And for now, I'll just keep these strokes sort of horizontal. Later we'll come in and we'll actually pick some of them up vertically, since we do have grass growing here. And this is mainly sort of back in this area where these cows are grazing. When you get up to the edge of this, there's a lot more grassy things growing, a lot more greener grass around the water. That totally makes sense, right? And then I'm going to actually use this radiant turquoise. I'm going to go into the same mixture, and I'm going to sort of get this this blue color, because when we get back here, this is picking up a lot of the sky. So and then there are some really nice green patches that are over in here. where this is actually picking up some color. And there'll be some green, some greener greens, some darker greens, things in here. And then we have a little bit of something similar going on in here. We'll just lay some of these in, just so we don't end up with a strange tangent here. This green coming across and stopping here and not continuing. If you're not familiar with the term tangent, that's what I mean. It's better for that to carry across. The eye will connect it. If it just stops here, and this is something different, it may not. Your eye might not always understand what's going on. So anyway, and there's some areas of this that have quite a bit of blue in them, so I'm actually going to just literally pick up some of this sky blue and just drop a little bit of this. This is that radiant turquoise. Works really good for this purpose, just where the light's catching some areas of that. And I'll show you what we're going to do with that in a second. As we get toward the foreground, we're getting into darker greens. So just for now, we're just going to go ahead and just kind of lay in some of this green here. And it actually gets a little bit, quite a bit darker up here. You actually end up with a little bit of earth tone just kind of laying in here. It's actually surrounded by green, so and I'll deal with this up next to the water here in a second. All right, let me take a quick look here. I'll just mix some greens kind of over in here, where they come up out of here. There's some darker greens. Just in some sections here. And then right over here, there's a nice, there's kind of an area where there's some dark green, where it juts out a little bit. And they get a little more yellow. Treating this a lot like I did the sky. I'm just really making an attempt to keep this brush moving and not let this get too static. So you'll probably hear me say that a lot because that's exactly what's going on in my head right now. So I don't want to lose focus on that. It's kind of important to me. So because it's what I'm working on. So this there's going to be you kind of have this rounded foliage that's kind of growing along this bank's edge here. And to show that this water is actually continuing on back, we're going to first we're going to come in here, and there's some areas of some nice bright greens, like right down in here, that are laying in this grass. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in, and maybe a touch later. Don't want that to get chalky on me, so okay. What I was saying was since all this grass is kind of growing along this edge, what I want to do is I want to keep this texture going to kind of show that this is actually going somewhere. So where this comes across here, I need some more color. That's not enough. There we go. Just blew it some more. All we have to do is bring some, bring a few of these out this way, and then let them cut back in, and we're going to actually show that that this is going somewhere, that it doesn't just end right there, which is kind of important. So I'll let this go over here. This one comes around this edge, and then sort of retreats back here into the distance. So there we go. That'll work for now. You know, I just realized that we forgot to see what Bob's got to say today. Let's see here.
And that may be the true joy of painting, is when you share it with other people. I really believe it's the true joy.
Yeah, man. The true joy of painting is when you share it with other people. You got that one right, Bob. All right, so now I'm going to go down. Into this water and try and work my way back up out of it. I see some other things that also need to be dealt with, but in general, these greens and things that are laying along the edge here, they just need to be heightened. These need to be a little bit darker, and that's not going to do it. Let's get some paint here. Just a little darker down around this edge here. And down in here. And then we have some basic shapes. We have some basic shapes of these greens that are also reflecting in the water. So we'll just drag some of these down in here. And light tends to reflect dark, and dark tends to reflect light. So as far as what to put, how to drag these in, I'm actually, where the areas are darker, I'm putting some lighter colors in, and where they're lighter, I'm just putting some darker colors in. So just keeping them vertical. I've also got this whole shape, which is going to be reflecting to some degree down here as well. So, and then get this up here. All right. Then before we go too far with that, there are some like lilies that are kind of, I would say, a little bit of this, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of white maybe. That was burnt sienna, by the way. And then we'll go back into those with some green. And that gives us kind of what their color is. And they're just like very, very much on top of the water, very flat surface. They just kind of are just living right up in here. And I just cut right across that reflection, because obviously you can't reflect the green off of those. It's not going to require a whole lot. And then we have some clouds that are actually reflected in the water. And we just have to make sure that the value is darker than what's being reflected. So we'll go back to kind of that cloud. We'll start with that cloud gray. Take a little bit of this, a little of that, and then we'll get some white in that. Not blue enough. There we go. We're just going to drag some of this in here. It's a little bit darker. A bit lighter back here. Still we're reflecting some clouds, so we'll put some of these purples in here. All right, I got some brighter areas right in here. Alright, then we'll just pick up some cobalt blue. Bring that in here. Maybe a little more cobalt. All right, so now we can go back in here and just get some of this cobalt blue in here. A lot more cobalt. Darker than that, so. All right, so there's just a few small details left here, and I want to bring this up a little bit brighter, kind of these three edges here, and then excuse me, and then maybe add a little maybe a little bush back here, and then I want to put in a few of these cows. And I'm looking at my water, and I'm okay with it. I think I sort of need to look at it for a while and really figure out if these colors are relating to the sky. I believe that they are. I haven't stepped back a lot, so I'm probably going to want to do that here in a minute and check that out. But I just had some details that needed to go into into here, and it's really just a few highlights on some of these kind of little lilies that are hanging around the edge here. Especially in that area there. The sun's kind of nailing that that particular spot. And then there's a really bright, kind of a bright green grass in a few places. But I think I'm going to downplay that and just let that be for now. If I add a little yellow into this and maybe a touch of green. Just want to get a few strokes over here. Need a lot more green. Maybe that's what we need. All right, not too much there, no problem. I can't really see a lot of these trees grow differently than my Michigan trees, where I can't really see a lot of the trunks, so I'm just going to leave those alone. I'm just going to kind of blur some of these lines back here. Right, and there are just a few highlights on some lower trees in this area here, so it doesn't take a whole lot, just a little bit tops here. And then on the tops of some of these back here. They're just little bushes that are laying down in front here, so. All right, now we'll just add in a few cows. These guys don't take a lot at all. So, and they're very dark anyway. So I actually have a little bit of a kind of a cobalt blue hue here, so I'm going to mix kind of a purple color. That didn't work. Let's try that again. Let's get some of this blue in here. And they do have like reddish backs to them, but they're too small to even care about that. So we have a couple different variations. Get a little of the cad red light. They've got just a touch of brown in them, and then they've got like this whitish blue color. So we'll just go with that. And probably end up with some sky blue in that, and some of that, especially on their backs where the sun's coming down on them. Just, I mean, they're just dots for the most part, so it's kind of hard to say. But just as an example, got one kind of right here. That's the middle of the canvas. I'm going to move over just a little bit so you can see his back. His back comes across. And then his head is down, so his neck is going down because he's eating grass. And then there's one a little bit closer to us that's actually facing us, and you can see his back like this. And then he's got kind of a sky blue with some yellow in it, maybe. Yeah, it's definitely got some yellow in it. A light gray color. That is the back part of his body. And then there's another one back here. It's probably facing away from us. Although they look like they're all sort of eating grass in the same direction, but I'm going to put one going across. And in this case, I want to indicate a head just a little bit. And there's one over here. Got one hanging out over here kind of by himself, a little bit smaller. And then I'm going to put one just off in the distance here a little bit. Who's just kind of just lagging behind a little. Alright, then we're going to come in and get some of this grass. And the grass is kind of growing up around them where they're sticking their heads in there, so. Since they're kind of standing in pretty high grass. This one over here to be. Maybe have a white backside as well. Okay. One more thing, and then we're gonna be done here. I'm just gonna go back in, and I'm gonna get some white here, which I think maybe my brush had a little brown on it, which is okay because I'm probably gonna just put a little bit of a little yellow in this anyway. There we go. And I just wanted to catch the tops of these right in here where they're just really catching some light. And I'm not necessarily referencing these. This is just my way of kind of wanting to show the strength of the sun, the brightness of the day. Just lightly kind of letting some of the paint drag off of here. Just feathering it in, kind of scumbling just a little bit. Kind of let this work its way into there. And then we'll just keep working right on back with this. All right, and then this last one right here, it's kind of our strongest cloud. So just get some nice paint up on this edge. It sets off really well against this kind of this darker gray right up here. Gives a little more dimension to these clouds. So. Okay. All right, so that's it. That's it for this one, and I hope at the end here I'm going to show you my painting and the one that Nigel did like this, and then I'll show you the painting that I did of the bridge again, and I'll show you the one that Nigel did of that one, and you'll get a chance to see how we both chose to interpret these scenes, and you know, this one's pretty good. I there's some things I really like about what I did here. I was really focused in on not letting the value of that water in the foreground get too light. I'm not sure my colors are right, but I will give this another attempt more than likely, because I really like this scene a whole lot. And then at the end, I'll scroll some of Nigel's other paintings so you can get a feel for his clouds and just how cool they are. And when you get really close to them, it always blows me away just how simple they are, but so effective, which, you know, it's like a hard lesson to learn. I don't know why it's so difficult, but today, the good thing was there's not a lot of room to put in a lot of detail, so I couldn't really think too much about that. I had to just get colors and values right. And yeah, in general, you know, this is pretty cool. So I like this contrast I got up here. I'm super happy with. I think going back in with this little bit of white with a touch of yellow in it really helped with the clouds. The yellow keeps that from getting really chalky, and I'm okay down in here, at least for now, but in general, I like it. I like my cows. They're really simple, but they seem to be working out. So yeah, cool. So thanks for checking out the video, and as always, I'll catch you later.